came a long way today to see this single plant growing here, Pyrola and aphylla, Leafless Wintergreen, growing in the San Bernardino Mountains without chlorophyll, sharing its life with some fungus in the soil from which it gets its carbon in exchange for nothing. I was just surprised in thinking that it's kind of odd that it's just here all by itself. There isn't, at least I didn't think there was any other ones around. But I looked a little closer and I found this little patch here, which is growing in a much different fashion with all these stems and kind of much more dense concentration of flowers on the stem, and I mean, I guess it's a little shadier. It came up a little later, and well, I mean, maybe there's a better patch of fungus to parasitize down there than in the other location, where there's only a couple stems emerging through the pine duff. The really great part about this location is that the Pyrola isn't the only microheterotrophic Ericaceae family member here, all part of the monotropoid subfamily. Here we also have the Sarcodes sanguinea, which is called the snow plant, another mycoheterotrophic. So it's heat living. It's at some point it might have been exchanging nutrients with the fungus, but at this point it's just taking the carbon, using that to generate energy. And the Sarcodes is well, it's pretty happy here too, because there's quite a bit of it. There's a few different patches. It's striking, its red color, particularly against the blue sky and the green pine needles before they fall. Also in this lovely location, we have an orchid. At this point it's really late in the season. It flowered back in June. It's Pyrolla maculata, and it's, you know, these are its fruits, and inside those bulbous fruits is just a bunch of fluff, a bunch of stuff that, I mean, I guess is the seeds. There's a particular specific name for that type of seed that the orchids have. Here it is. Here's a coral root orchid growing late in the season, getting ready to throw some mature fruits to the wind. Oh, well, apparently there was more. This is a little fresher, a little shadier location. on the other side of the stream, up the hill a little bit. Still a little bit expired, or past its prime anthesis, the glory days of its flowering stage. Again in the beautiful pine forest, and again, not surprisingly, here's the Sarcodes. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, well, this is the third patch. Well, actually, the fourth patch I've found in about a 100-meter squared region. So it's not quite so miraculous that I found the first plant. It wasn't just a isolated thing out in the middle of nowhere. It is remarkable, nonetheless. I mean, it has no leaves. It has no chlorophyll. It's interesting, the development from something like Mahonia or Madrone. Not Mahonia. It's interesting, the development from Manzanita or Madrone with the red stem to this plant of the same family with the red stem and no leaves and red everything. And I wonder if somehow the chemical responsible for the pigment is a kind of like a harbinger, some measure of the mycorrhizal relationship, a product of the mycorrhizal relationship that exists in the Ericaceae that still are photosynthesizing, and then as the relationship develops further and they become completely mycoheterotrophic, that pigment then is everywhere. There's something about that red color, that red stem, and the progression from merely mycorrhizal relationship all the way to mycoheterotrophy, and I know there's more there. I can feel it in my in me. That's my biggest patch I found. And I really like this. I like the way the light splits through the trees. That's pretty. A little prismatic effect, and the backlight, and the blue sky, and the habitat, and the just total weirdness of this plant makes for just my kind of scene. Before, I had been trying to hypothesize about some relationship, developmental relationship between the red stems in the various Serracaceae family members, starting with the chlorophyllous ones like Madrone or Manzanita. This is Manzanita, so here we can see the red stem, or at least the skin of the stem is red, because we can see as it peels away it's green underneath. So something's going on here. And I was comparing this to the stem of Sarcodes or the stem of Pyrola aphylla. I think it's aphylla, not anaphylla. Either way, it's Pyrola that ain't got no leaves. Leafless wintergreen. All these plants in the Ericaceae family, they start with red stems. They all have mycorrhizal relationships. As they progress in that, or when they choose a certain developmental direction, or they pursue a certain developmental direction, one that leads to microheterotrophy, they lose the green leaves, they lose the green pigmentation, they lose the ability to do photosynthesis, and and they become completely red. And I wonder, what is the relationship between the fungus, the secondary metabolite, a potential secondary metabolite produced within the Ericaceae family members as a result of that relationship, and how that secondary metabolite that's associated with the red pigment predisposes the plant towards a developmental arc, or at least facilitates it, that allows for the emergence of mycoheterotrophy. Back here with the leafless wintergreen. Just can't get enough. Well, you can see the petals and the anthers and the stamen, the general reproductive parts necessary to, get pollinated and do a little reproduction. Down here we have the chlorophyllous stem scales that at some point in this genus's history might have actually been leaves. And around the corner we can see what would be new stems trying to emerge from the soil. Oh, this plant. Up close and personal. For whatever reason, my mind refuses to internalize This is the really dense patch of the leafless wintergreen. I'm just so surprised because everybody else seems to really want their personal space, but in this location they're just growing together so densely. They're Pyrola, aphylla. Ode to Leafless Wintergreen. Oh, you have no leaves and no chlorophyll. How do you survive? You must have friends in high places. Actually, no, low places. And are they your friends, since you are essentially a parasitic plant that's living down there, or parasitizing on a fungus which lives under the soil? Technical term is mycoheterotroph. Oh, the shadow. Look there. We have a little bit of, well, maybe closer here, right in the background. Number one is Artemisia tridentata, and then a little bit of the native rose, and then a ginormous pine, either Jeffrey or ponderosa. Also a white fir. There's probably a juniper in there somewhere. These mycoheterotrophic plants like to live in the understory of this type of forest, in this case the coniferous forest. The pine duff becomes a fantastic substrate for the fungus. And it might not just be the pine duff, but also the pine roots which penetrate through the soil, which the fungus has relationships with. The fungus shares nutrients with the pine, and then this little number, Pyrola aphylla, just sucks all the energy up, or it doesn't share nothing. It just takes. But you know, fortunately, there's enough to go around. It's in the Ericaceae family. The Ericaceae family is marked by urn-shaped flowers. You know, it's a lot easier to see on this plant's cousin, Pterospora andromedia, the woodland pine drops. I think that's just about enough. Hi, my name is Pyrola aphylla. And now do I not only have no leaves, I have no flower petals. Hopefully I've been pollinated by some nasty little insect, and I'll be dispersing my dust seeds soon. So peaceful. These little backlit beauties are the Pyrola aphylla. Over here, they've got a little bit more sun over the course of the season, so they've matured a little bit faster. And as opposed to the ones across the little seep, these guys, or gals, or guy gals, have no leaves anymore. Or, well, they didn't have any leaves ever, did they? They have no flower petals at this point. And if my iPhone ever decides to cooperate. We'll get a little focus going for a second. And we can see that. Anyway, just an odd mycoheterotrophic achlorophyllus plant from the Ericaceae family that has a bit of a dystopian look and feel to it from my eyes, but tends to grow in what would, I think most people would agree is a very beautiful environment, marked by pines and junipers and firs and roses and lilies and unfortunately for the leafless wintergreen, it's also a wonderful habitat for various fungus.